In a quiet town nestled between the mountains, there lived a man named Tom. He wasn't someone anyone would describe as a hero. He worked as a carpenter, crafting furniture with skillful hands, and led a simple, peaceful life. But sometimes, it's in the quietest people that true courage hides, waiting for the right moment to emerge. One autumn evening, a storm unlike any the town had seen in decades rolled in. The wind howled, tearing through the streets, and the sky rumbled with thunder. The river that ran through the town began to swell, rising higher with each passing minute. Before long, it became clear. The town was in danger of flooding. Panic spread quickly. Families rushed to gather their belongings and flee to higher ground. But amid the chaos, Tom noticed something others had missed. The elderly couple who lived at the edge of the town, Mr. and Mrs. O'Brien, hadn't made it out. Their house stood near the riverbank, directly in the path of the rising waters. Without a second thought, Tom grabbed his coat and flashlight, heading toward their house. The rain was relentless, beating down on him as he pushed through the wind. By the time he reached the O'Brien's home, the water was already creeping up to their doorstep. Tom banged on the door, shouting above the storm, "Mr. O'Brien, Mrs. O'Brien, it's Tom. You need to get out now." Inside, he heard the muffled sound of voices. The door creaked open, and there stood Mr. O'Brien, frail and shaking. "We can't leave," he said, his voice filled with fear. "My wife is too weak to move." Tom's heart raced. The water was rising faster now, swirling around his ankles. There wasn't much time. He knew that if they didn't leave soon, they'd be trapped. Without hesitation, Tom rushed inside. "Don't worry," he said firmly. "I'll carry her." With incredible strength, fueled by urgency, Tom lifted Mrs. O'Brien into his arms. She was light, but the weight of the situation bore heavily on him. He moved quickly, guiding Mr. O'Brien along as they made their way out into the storm. The walk back to safety was treacherous. The water was now knee-deep, and the current strong. Tom fought against it, his muscles aching, but he never slowed. His only thought was to get them to safety. Step by step, he pushed forward, his determination growing with each struggle. Finally, they reached higher ground, where other townspeople had gathered. They cheered when they saw Tom emerging from the darkness. Soaked and exhausted but triumphant, he gently set Mrs. O'Brien down, making sure she was safe and warm. For a moment, Tom simply stood there, catching his breath. He looked back at the path he had taken, the flood now sweeping through the town. It was a sight that would have made any man feel small, but Tom had faced it and won. In the days that followed, Tom became a hero in the eyes of the town. But when people praised his bravery, he simply shrugged and smiled. "I just did what anyone else would have done," he said. But the truth was, not everyone would have. It took a special kind of courage to do what Tom did, a quiet, selfless bravery that didn't seek attention or reward. And though the storm had passed, the memory of Tom's courage remained, inspiring others to be brave in their own lives, no matter the storm they faced.